we could say, state of mind, which is exactly why we need these teachings even more so, because that's what these teachings are all about. They're about taking these deep concepts and bringing them down into our consciousness and transforming our egocentric consciousness, and transforming our base desires and things and lowly way of looking at things to really bring out our true self, the prince that is, and the princess that is found within each and every one of us. So that takes us to the next big idea, redeemed through peace. So when the Alter Rebbe was in prison, he had many guests, and one of the guests was in fact the Tsar, that he heard amazing things about the Alter Rebbe, his great wisdom. And when he came in to visit him, he was dressed up as a regular individual. He didn't dress up as the king. And as he walked in, the Alter Rebbe immediately stood up and he said the blessing which is said over the king, overseeing a king. And so the Tsar said, incredibly, how did you know this? So he said, because when you walked in, I felt the ministering angels up above walking along with you. And I knew that this was not any ordinary person. And so the Tsar and the Alter Rebbe had many conversations in that small prison. And the Tsar knew that the Alter Rebbe was 100% innocent and was a unique individual. And one of the conversations that they had was about the purpose of life. And the Alter Rebbe told him, or in response to a question that the Tsar asked of the Alter Rebbe, what does it mean in the Bible that God said to Adam, Ayeka, where are you? Didn't God know where Adam was? And so the Alter Rebbe said the answer which is given over there in the commentaries, but then the Tsar said, I know the answer to that. I want to hear the deeper reason. And so the Alter Rebbe said like this, he said, what God calls each and every one of us, and he says, you're this and this age and this and many days, and he says, where are you? And he said the exact age of the Tsar and the exact days to the birthday of the Tsar. And he says, God is constantly saying, where are you? And the Tsar almost fainted. And basically, after a court case that they had, and the Alter Rebbe was asked question after question after question about the philosophy and about what he did, etc., and he passed each and every one of them. So he was brought back into the prison, and the Alter Rebbe's custom was he said the entire Psalms by heart. He said the entire book every single day, or a few times a day perhaps, by heart. And so as he got to the verse in Psalms, that Psalms 54, Pada b'shalom nafshi, that God had redeemed me through peace, then the door opened and the Alter Rebbe was then told the good news that he was in fact free. So this verse, Pada b'shalom nafshi, that God had redeemed me through peace, is a major, we could say, way of understanding, or hook to understand the whole essence of this redemption and imprisonment. But essentially the redemption of the Alter Rebbe. And so this verse said by King David, that God had redeemed me through peace, refers to the war that King David had with his son, Avshalom, who was his wayward son. He wanted to kill his father. He created a whole army that chased his father. King David was on the run because of him. And not only Avshalom, but many other enemies came through against King David. But what the Talmud says is that the very army and the very Avshalom's own right-hand people were completely transformed by love for King David. Eventually, King David won that war, and Avshalom died in a very tragic way, which King David really mourned for, even though he wanted to kill him. But the people that really were after King David were completely transformed. And so the Talmud said that God redeemed King David through peace, because the people that were his enemies were transformed to be his friends, and people, even more than friends, people that loved him. And so it's explained by the Alter Rebbe and the other Rebbes that explain this verse. They say the following, that one could be, when one is in battle, one could be in a battle which is called milchama, and that's basically a faraway combat where people are far away and they're either throwing arrows at each other or whatever, and they're far away. And then you have krav. Krav is like combat, where they're face to face, and they're even wrestling with each other in a way. So pada b'shalmi kravli. So when one has a battle, it's a very intense thing, and so to transform that battle that one has with the most intense enemy and to create him into someone that loves you shows a transformation from what we call katzeh lakatzeh, from side to side, a complete transformation. And that was the transformation that occurred over here on Yud Tet Kislev. It was a transformation of darkness into light. It was a transformation of the Alter Rebbe even being put to death. That's what they wanted to do to him, to be transformed into, now he was granted, as he left, he was given the title of a nobleman, and the Tsar himself was like good friends with him. And so the family Schneerson had this name of nobility for generations. So a complete transformation from side to side. So that is the amazing result of Yud Tet Kislev, that it wasn't just, okay, now letting go, but it showed that transformation. And the truth is, what it shows us is that the world itself wants these teachings. The world itself wants to be transformed and is ready to be transformed. And it's just a matter if we're ready to really, go out there and really believe it. So that brings us to the next big idea: life, light, and life. So in the letter written by the Rebbe Rashab, the great-great-grandson of the Alter Rebbe, he writes that this day is a day that that we were given the light and chayut and life were granted to us, were given to us. And he said that this is the very Torah, this is the very teachings of the Baal Shem Tov being redeemed. So the expression is light and lifeline. What does that mean, light and lifeline? So it's explained by the son of the Rebbe Rashab that this means as follows. When we talk about light, then when we go into a sunny place, so we enjoy basking in that light. And we feel that light actually permeating every part of us. But what? Permeating it externally. When we go into a light room, then we see everything around us, and we appreciate that sort of gift that we have, which is called light. However, that light does not reach we could say, the deep caverns of who we are. It's something that shines externally to us. And so this light, the light of Hasidus, the light of Kabbalah, is a light, and it gives one light. And so one could have the inspiration, the light, and even though they're not learning it so deeply, but just being connected on some level to Kabbalah and Hasidus, so that what that does is that it gives one light, and one feels differently. They feel good by having this connection. But then there's the next level, there's the deeper level, that's called life force. And life force is just like in the body, we have different life forces. So we have one major life force, that's the life force, we could say, of our being, of our soul, and the way it breaks down. But then that life force is imbued within the body. It's within the hands in a certain way, it's within the eyes in a certain way, it's within the feet in a certain way, the organs in their particular way, etc. So each part of our bodies has its particular life force. So when one studies these deep mystical teachings, so then and really understands them and really brings them into the cognitive level and into the emotional level and into their consciousness, etc. So then one is able to really bring down that life force into the details of their lives. And that, of course, is the ultimate purpose of these teachings, to really bring them into one's essence, into one's being, to be transformed from them internally, in what we call pnimiyut, in an internal way, as opposed to just being inspired externally, which is also great and it's better than nothing for sure. But being inspired is a preparation to really studying on a deeper level, and that's what the Rebbe Rashab says, Or v'chayut, the light and life force has been granted to us through these teachings of the Alter Rebbe, through the teachings of Hasidus, the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, the teachings of the Arizal, the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that have all been accessed, become available to us on this day of Yud Tet Kislev. And so this brings us to the last big idea, holiday of holidays. So in that letter of the Rebbe Rashab, he calls it the Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year of Hasidus, of the studying of Hasidus. And just like on Rosh Hashanah, one has the entire year really stamped, and it's decided what's going to happen in the whole year ahead of them on those days of Rosh Hashanah. So too, on Yud Tet Kislev, it's the day of actually kind of like deciding from up above on what the rest of the year is going to look like for them in the spiritual way, but also in the physical way. Because when one has a connection to the spiritual, to the teachings, to these immense teachings of the king, to that jewel, that crown jewel, so then that brings down divine blessings into their very day-to-day things and everything that they do in their material world. And so that's the reason why it's called the holiday of holidays, because a holiday in Hebrew is called Chag. What's the translation of a Chag? Means it's a circle. A Chag comes from the word machog, because every single year we go back to that same space. The Ramchal speaks about this, and many other Kabbalists speak about that, the idea that a holiday, in each holiday we connect to the energy of that holiday in the way it was in the original time that it happened. So on Passover we feel redemption, and that's how it explains that Abraham celebrated Passover even before Passover was happened, before there was even the Jewish people, before they came out of Egypt, etc. Because he felt that energy on that day. So on that day, there's a special vitality. So Chag comes from the word machog. Now the question is, do we feel that energy that is within each and every one of those holidays? So we could celebrate the holidays in a way that is what? It's a little bit external. We could celebrate it by having great meals, and it's important. That's great, don't get me wrong. But the holiday is more about connecting to the depth of it, connecting to the meaning of it. How do we understand the meaning of what the holidays speak about? It's by connecting to the teachings, to the deep teachings, the mystical teachings. And when do those teachings become really accessible?